exploring our mission and story. No doubt we're all familiar with this scene from the Sistine Chapel, the creation of Adam. If we look closer, we see another story unfolding, the story of our longing for God and God's longing for us. In our short time together, we will look at this big story, the story of our institution and our personal story, and how these four intersect. Here are some words that are key to this exploration: heritage, legacy, tradition, values, call, and vocation. Our story begins with sacred scripture, part of the graced memory of the community. It is here we have narrated the story of the ongoing and deepening relationship between God and God's people. The scripture is our story too. Beginning with the Hebrew scriptures, we learn that God doesn't want suffering, illness, or death to mar God's beautiful creation. So we hear the story of the prophet Elisha, who in a simple and undramatic way cures Naaman of his leprosy. The Christian scriptures are filled with stories of Jesus curing people of their illnesses and compassionately feeding the crowds who follow him, eager for his teaching and wisdom. At one point during his ministry, Jesus was asked to summarize the law. His response was, "There are 2 commandments: to love God with our whole heart, mind, spirit, and to love our neighbor as ourselves." Questioned as to who is our neighbor, he responded with the story of the Good Samaritan, a man beaten by robbers and left by the roadside. Good people pass by this wounded and helpless victim. When the story ends with the help of a despised foreigner, a Samaritan, Jesus turns the question back on his inquirer and asks, "Who, then, is my neighbor? Who is neighbor to this person?" The Christian scriptures also contain stories of Jesus teaching the people and bringing them to an understanding of the truth of who God is and what God desires for God's creation. Further, the night before Jesus died, he gave us a dramatic example of how we are to be in relationship with our sisters and brothers. We are to serve one another. Please choose one of these pictures and then reflect on the following questions. Who is being served? Who is doing the serving? Who else is in the picture? When have you seen this happening in your organization? Just as these many events and actions in our graced memory have shaped and formed our institution, so too there are some particular persons we need to know better to understand our heritage and legacy. St. Vincent de Paul, a revolutionary figure in 17th century France, who believed in the inherent dignity of each person, whether noble or serf, has been given the deserved title the apostle of charity. For a better understanding of this man who inaugurated significant social reforms, we can look to his words, "Love is inventive unto infinity." Thus, when we see the world and others through the eyes of love, then all things become possible. Vincent was able to do so much because he trusted first and foremost not in his own talents, but in God's providential care. And when Vincent died, all Paris mourned. Vincent was not able to accomplish all he did for the poor without the collaboration of Louise de Marillac. Left a widow by the time she was 35, Louise felt drawn to care for the needs of the poor and met Vincent. Together, they established the Daughters of Charity, whose principal aim was to care for the many poor who populated the cities and the countryside as a result of the 30 Years' War. Elizabeth Ann Seton, a native New Yorker who lived through the American Revolution, is a third person who has shaped our story and our heritage. Like Louise, she was widowed at a young age. In the course of providing a home for the needs of her 5 children, she established the Sisters of Charity. The Seton family motto, "Hazard yet forward," gives us insight into her spirit and the many challenges she met as she lived her life as a young widow. Her advice to the sisters in the newly formed community, "Do your best and leave the rest in the hands of our dear God," still rings true today for our work, as does another of her favorite expressions, "Go out to meet your grace." As we continue to explore our heritage, we look to the Sisters of Charity of New York, who continue this legacy of service. In the over 200 years of our existence, we have, in collaboration with others, cared for immigrants and those living in poverty. More recently, the sisters have put into words our beliefs about our mission in a sponsorship statement, which reads, "The Sisters of Charity of New York sponsor ministries, concrete expressions of our mission to reveal God's love to all in need, especially those living in poverty. These faith-based services extend the mission of charity by the quality of the programs, fiscal stability, and organizational culture. We work in partnership to promote common values." Well, we've looked at the big story as expressed in our Grace Memory and the significant persons who have shaped our legacy. It is now time to step back and look at the why of all of this. In each of our stories, individuals responded to a call to reach out and help. We have the word vocation, a translation of the Latin meaning to call, vocare, which names what is going on. Jesus called disciples. Here we have him calling Peter and Andrew, Matthew the tax collector, and Paul. Each received the call in a different way. So, what brought you to this organization? And what keeps you here? The words of Zini Fox might assist us in our reflection. I believe that lay leaders of Catholic institutions have responded to God's call in choosing a helping profession, whether there is a conscious awareness or not. I believe that lay leaders have responded again to God's call when they accept the roles of leadership. Taken from Zini Fox's book, Called and Chosen. Thank you for your time and attention. We do ask one more thing. During the coming week, have a cup of coffee with a colleague and talk about how this presentation connected with your life.